off for a pit stop, 2-week hiatus. And coming up after our next interview to give us a perspective on the destabilization in the Middle East, we're going to premiere the hour-plus exclusive interview with the founder of the Smashing Pumpkins, Billy Corrigan, that we shot about a week and a half ago here at this table. So that's coming up here in about 15 minutes or so. So please stay with us. First off, Syrian girl has been quite a sensation on the internet. She's not like the people that have been caught working for the West who are from England and don't really live in Syria, who've been caught, Syrian Danny and others doing fake machine gun fire and claiming there's dead bodies all around them. No, she doesn't even claim to be in Syria. She's in an undisclosed location, but of course, her family is from Syria. In fact, her family comes from the last ruling class family there, so she doesn't even really like Assad. So I thought I would get her on to talk about that and then look at Al-Qaeda on record being called freedom fighters and protesters, blowing up military and police bases a few weeks ago, and the protesters now for 6 months that have been shooting and killing people that Anderson Cooper and others are praising. So we're going to talk about that, Angelina Jolie when she visited, and more, with Syrian girl joining us from an undisclosed location. Syrian girl, thank you for coming on with us.
My pleasure.
Let's get a little bit into yourself and, as a Syrian, what your overall view, what your family's view is, if you can tell us on what's happening there, the different forces that are involved.
So when I was growing up, I was always given a very bad impression of the Syrian government, and I accepted this as the status quo. And obviously now that I'm older, I realize that's not true. But the reason for this is my family is actually from the previous bourgeois ruling class and was deposed from power during the Ba'athist coup. My grandfather was in government, and also on my mother's side, we had some land that was confiscated and whatnot, but that's okay, I guess. Basically, even in my own family, there's been some issues with the government where people have gone to prison and things like that. So I'm not pro-government. I'm actually not pro very many governments in the entire world. I'm hard-pressed to find one government that I find myself in agreement with. And I'm quite cynical in this view. I feel that, the state exists for the state alone. So I'm also suspicious of any new government that might ever arise. I just feel like whoever wins, the government always wins. So I understand completely where people who have issues with the government are coming from. But on the same hand, I also understand why there's a lot of support for the government. Education is free, healthcare is free in Syria. There's no foreign debt. Religions live amongst each other peacefully. So I see where both camps are coming from. But I have to, at this point in Syria, because Syria is not some island that is separated from the rest of the world. Actually, Syria is very different to the rest of the countries. We are surrounded by our enemies from every side of the borders. So you can't just apply, all other considerations that other countries might have, revolutions, and not consider where Syria is and who would benefit from it and who is causing it. And for Syria, we need to have more security than other people. It's not like we don't have a reason for it or we have to invent a reason for it. We actually do have legitimate reasons to be suspicious. So at this time, I just don't feel that, at any time, I don't feel that we should concern the world with our internal issues. Syria's internal issues is that Syria.
So it's an issue of national sovereignty. But look, we know that whether it's Uganda or whether it's Libya or whether it's Iraq, you can say these are bad leaders or good leaders. I mean, overall, obviously, I don't like big government authoritarian systems, so they're bad. But the West wants to come in and destabilize and wreck it. and then put Al-Qaeda in charge. And so when you've got those two choices there, it's obvious. The West says they want to bring freedom to these places, but they don't do that. And of course, you were on my show a month ago talking about it being Al-Qaeda. That's in our news. It's being funded by the West. The same groups they used to topple Gaddafi, now engaged in black genocide there. That's in the news, but a minor footnote. What about a few weeks ago, these giant blasts blowing up police headquarters, intelligence headquarters, and our media basically called it a protest. So, oh, the sweet little protesters are blowing up buildings, and this has been going on now for more than 6 months. I mean, it's just so ridiculous to watch Anderson Cooper all breathless, hyperventilating up there about how he wants to, and of course, you know, these fake reporters they've had that have been caught lying. What do you think of that?
I think it's been happening since the very beginning, but only now have they, has the media in the West, I mean, not all media, obviously, but only now is it really coming to light. You know, they've been faking videos. I've got evidence of it a lot, you know, in friends' channels, in my own channel, of them faking things from the start. But now, it seems that they are actually, well, not now, we know that they've been collaborating with these insurgents. And now Anderson Cooper, he was interviewing this guy called Danny, as you know, and your viewers would probably know that this Danny was caught faking an interview saying that he was under bombardment when really he was you know, in complete safety, and he was actually faking sounds of shelling. And now Anderson Cooper tried to distance himself from Danny and saying, oh, you know, poor CNN, it hasn't been allowed into Syria, and hence it has to rely on these dubious sources. Well, actually, CNN was allowed into Syria, and this was at the time of the oil refinery fire in Homs. And there was a video that was found that was set up by these insurgents facing the direction of the oil refinery fire 16 hours previous to the actual explosion that blew it up. And actually on this very same video, the voices of CNN journalists, Arwa Damon, I think her name is, and some of her colleagues were heard on this video. So not only were they not only are they so skewed and faking interviews, they're actually collaborating with people who are committing terrorist bombings. And I can't say how far this collaboration goes, but obviously they knew what was going to happen because they were there, you know, with the camera. So this is not like new. If you remember in Libya, there was one CNN, I have to correct myself, it may not have been CNN, but there was one Western journalist who on her Twitter tweeted that she helped NATO that day because she directed them to a position of where to airstrike. So we're not really dealing with independent media here, we're dealing with enemy media, and some of these so-called media are spies. I know that in Syria, in the same team that Arwa Damon was with, we had former SAS agents. So these guys are, I think it's the Syrian government is actually right in being suspicious of the foreign media. And I'm actually, you know, given their history of supporting militarily the invasions and whatnot, that they should be suspicious of the Western media.
Sure, and just to be clear here, the United States has been hijacked by these big mega banks on record. The Economist, Financial Times of London, they brag, oh, Goldman Sachs has conquered Europe. So it's not like my country and even Israel or Australia or England want to attack Syria. No, it's just our name on it. The big mega oligarch banks are using our countries in NATO to go after your nation and selling us that it's humanitarian because, you know, Saddam threw babies out of incubators. Turns out that wasn't true, or Saddam has WMDs, or Gaddafi's got rape gangs out fueled by Viagra. None of that was true. Anderson Cooper has them all on with classic bestial war propaganda. But Anderson Cooper is not an American. You know, Anderson Cooper is a globalist operative. So I want to be clear. It's not that, oh, I'm siding against America with Syria. I don't like Assad, just like your family got run out of there by Assad and locked up. The point is they're not trying to go in and throw Assad out to bring some type of freedom, but to loot the region and put Al-Qaeda in charge, who've said they're going to run out the Muslim minority groups and the Christians. So, I mean, they're going to put Al-Qaeda in there. That's on record to wreck the place when it's an industrialized civilization. And it's the same thing with Iran. And it's Saudi Arabia, that corrupt, not the people of Saudi Arabia, but that a corrupt elite who is backed by the British Empire doing all of this. Israel's involved, not the Israeli people. I mean, 70+% don't want to attack Iran and Israel. But our media acts like Americans are traitors if we don't want to attack Iran. Well, the majority of Israelis don't. This is madness by the ruling class that wants all these wars and is overthrowing all these countries by proxy to loot them. Do you agree with those statements, or is there any tidbits you want to add to? You disagree?
I absolutely agree with the majority. I might add a few tidbits. I want to definitely confirm and agree that, you know, our war, our fight is everybody's fight. You know, we're all fighting these banks. We're all fighting this ruling elite that happens to be crazy, because we can see that they're crazy by the fact that they follow some strange religions and seem to want to put symbolism everywhere in the crimes that they commit. And you know, it's not about being behind Syria and against America. No, it's about stopping the potential of a third world war. And the only people who are going to suffer are us, you know, all of us, people, civilians, soldiers, our families. So, you know, I totally agree. Our fight is your fight, and your fight is our fight. So I want to put out also with Israel, you know, I have no hatred towards any different people. And for me, the perfect solution would be to go back to the way things were, where Jews and Muslims and Christians were living in the old cities and in Syria, and we had no problem whatsoever. And for me, you know, a one-state solution would be ideal, but that's a very, very long story. I don't want to get into that. But with Assad specifically, and you also mentioned Saddam Hussein, they always try to create a caricature of like this evil boogeyman. And they, you know, Osama bin Laden, Hitler, and so forth, as the film Conning 2012 did, Conning, another one. But with Assad, it's a little bit, it doesn't quite mesh very well, because even though the government of Syria might be very hard, Bashar Assad himself is actually quite soft. You know, he never actually intended to become president. He was an ophthalmologist.
They don't even deny that he was trying to reform. The bureaucracy has been blocking him, correct?
No, I don't think so. Well, actually, before pre-2008, they had him coming to France. They had him, you know, like they were premiering and trying to buy him away from Iran, basically, in so many words. And a part of that was, I guess, Angelina Jolie coming to Syria, and you know, all these articles coming out like, oh, you know, these dictators are actually very mild, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, there was no way that Syria or even Bashar was going to side with our enemies, these, you know, owned governments in Europe against our ally Iran. So from that point on, they realized, well, that there's only so far that these reforms go. You know, he's not going to introduce a central bank, etc. So I guess from that day on, he was enemy number one.
Well, before we went live here in the interview, you said that you wanted to bring up Angelina Jolie and the points I'd made about her. I mean, what's your view on what